If you thought lobsters were red, think again. Today we're talking about a Pharaoh & Ball paint color that I'm really excited to share with you. It is one of their newest colors from their Carte Blanche series of paint colors that we talked about in a previous video, if you haven't seen it. And this is a color that really stood out to me for a number of reasons. Firstly, it's not what you're expecting when you hear the name lobster and paint color. CB7 Lobster by Pharaoh & Ball is this beautiful, lively blue that has a little bit of a turquoise quality to it as well. And it's one of the colors that really popped, that really stood out to me when I saw that whole Carte Blanche palette put together. So what we're gonna do today in this episode of Color Quickie, James the Color Guy is gonna give you some information on this paint color and also some color pairings to go with it, both on your trim and your other walls in your home. Sounds good? I thought so too. So this new color palette by Pharaoh & Ball featured a lot of blue. Basically a third of the palette are all different variations of blue, which is interesting because that's what we're really seeing company to company with their colors of the year. I particularly like the colors in this palette because of how fun they are, and that's because this palette was helped curated by this designer, which is amazing. He's known for big fun colors, big shapes, and more importantly, fashion. So it's a slight deviation away from interior design, which I think is good. When different types of design sort of intersect, a lot of fun things can happen. So lobster is definitely an accent color in my opinion, although you could use it in whole rooms if you want them to really stand out as accent rooms, but it's not really something I would consider for a main color in a home, unless you had a really trendy condo and you just had one area that you were painting and you really wanted something just punchy and fun. It is blue leaning, so it does have a slightly serene feel, but because of its saturation, it's going to be extremely bright and potent, which is why I've offered some other colors in this palette to give you some more neutral, chill options, let's just say. Named after Louisiana lobsters that apparently can occasionally be blue, like the mythical cotton candy lobsters I've heard about. Lobster would be a great choice in areas like bathrooms or kitchen or anywhere you wanted a big blast of color that still felt very contemporary. And you can also use this as an exterior accent color, maybe a front door. This would be a great choice. Or a nice Muskoka chair painted lobster. I think that's fun. All right, let's get to some color pairing, starting with trim options. The first one being the white trim color. So if you're painting your baseboards and your doors and your frames white or off-white, I'd recommend using all white, which is Pharaoh & Ball's go-to straight up white. It'll give you the most amount of contrast, the most amount of pop, nice crisp trim to frame lobster, the beautiful blue. And then for a darker trim choice, this is one that's a little different from what I normally do. It's not too dark. It's Purbeck Stone, and this is more of an understated, earthy, grayish type of color. So it's not really a dark color at all. It's more of a light mid-tone, but it'll give you a different option that isn't white, but will still have some contrast and some brightness to keep your trim feeling fresh, but just a little more understated. Now, what about wall colors? If you're painting other parts of your home, what are some options? Well, the first one is Cabbage White, and this is an off-white that has a hint of blue, kind of a minty blue, I would say. It's almost a grayed out greeny blue, and it's subtle. It is going to be a very good choice if you want something a little more minimal to sort of carry the weight of your color palette and then have lobster be the accent here and there. Cabbage White has enough to it where it's not just a boring stark crisp white. It has a very toned down bluey green undertone to give you a little more flexibility. I then wanted to bring some warmth in for my second color pairing. This one's gonna be a bit more complimentary. It's called Hay, and it's the color of hay. So it translates to a mid-tone, kind of a golden, dusty sort of yellow. It may seem kind of beigey a little bit, but it has quite a bit of that yellow coloration to it. So don't be fooled. It will stand out quite noticeably, especially next to lobster, which is why I picked it. There is the slightest bit of a green undertone, or maybe ochre or something like that. It's just a settled down mustard type of quality, which I enjoy. Similarly to lobster, this is another one of those accent colors, although it does feel a little more traditional, I would say, so it's not going to feel like pop art like lobster might. You might feel like you can get away with it in more spaces in your home just because it sort of has that more traditional kind of golden yellowy base. But this is one that I would test out because it actually is more saturated than you might think. The third color pairing is the darkest color in this palette for sure. It's also part of that Carte Blanche color palette that was curated with lobster, and this one is called Cardamom, one of my favorite spices slash smells slash flavors. This color is extremely rich and dark. It has a luxurious chocolatey brown quality to it with a green undertone. So you have that green undertone carrying through pretty much all the color pairings and lobster itself. That's what's really tying this whole palette together. There is no in-your-face green, but just a little bit of it sprinkled in the background. Here's the palette all together. Let me know what you think. We have another color palette right over here. One of my first color reviews ever. Urbane Bronze. Very similar to Cardamom, I would say.